Oh, let me tell you, the amount of guilt-tripping Meredith gets about her father drives me insane. I can barely contain my frustration. Thatcher? Don't even get me started. This guy's a whole mess. Yeah, his wife cheated on him and neglected him. Real tragic. But guess what? He chose to check out on his own daughter. Meredith is the victim in this whole situation, yet people keep twisting it like she owes him something. First, it's guilt trips about accepting his new family. Then, it's about welcoming his daughter. And now, with this whole liver debacle. Please, I can already tell where this is heading, and I'm not here for it. No, Meredith should not be guilted into any of this. I am not here for this. And let's never forget that slap. You remember that, right? Thatcher slapped her, and the whole world just went, meh. How is this not a bigger deal? Thatcher is just the worst. He's this walking example of how a victim can turn into a total villain. Yeah, he was mistreated, but taking it out on Meredith? Absolutely disgusting. He's a horrible human being. It's no wonder Meredith is in pain, seeing how perfectly he treats his new family. And no, I'm not even exaggerating here. Thatcher is literally one of the worst characters on Grey's Anatomy. Every time he shows up, I just want to scream. And oh, the cherry on top of the fire, his drinking problem. Fantastic. As someone in AA, you'd think he'd be a lesson in redemption or something. But no, he's just the embodiment of, I've made my mistakes, but I still don't deserve your anger. Thatcher? No, Meredith should have told him to go himself when he came crawling back. I can't believe he just left her with Ellis, of all people, and acted like Meredith wasn't even his daughter. Like, no, somebody needed to slap him for real. And then there's Susan. Can we talk about Susan for a second? Why is she so loved in this sub? I don't get it. Did we all watch the same show? Susan didn't give a damn about Meredith until Molly was in the hospital, which was, Meredith's workplace, and Ellis died, leaving Thatcher as her only parent. So suddenly, Susan's trying to ease her own guilt by playing the I care about Meredith card. But do you remember her line? Yes, he made some mistakes, but he's not a monster. He's just an inarticulate person who spills food on his shirt a lot. Excuse me? What world is she living in? Honestly, I'm not even a huge Meredith fan, but watching her go through all that, it was heartbreaking. And then Susan, no, you're wrong for being mad at Thatcher. What? This woman wasn't even trying to make amends. But somehow Meredith's the bad guy for not rolling over and accepting him and his new family? Then Lexi jumps in oh, we share the same father, so you owe me. And I'm no, Lexi, just no. Seriously, I don't know how people can defend these characters. It's like they all forgot how much Meredith had to go through. Why did Adele stay? Well, there are plenty of reasons people stick around, even when their spouse has an affair. Some cling to the kids, some to the money, some to the stability, which is really just code for, I can't be bothered to start over, and some do it because they're scared of change. But none of those reasons really seem to apply to Adele. Sticking around just doesn't seem like her style. They don't have kids. He wasn't making much money when he was busy having his little fling as an intern, so it's not like Adele was gold digging. Being married to a doctor at the start of his career isn't exactly a ticket to stability. Moving for job opportunities is basically a given. And let's be real, Richard was always working. Companionship wasn't exactly on the table. Adele was a tough, independent woman, so shame or fear of starting over wouldn't have kept her tied down. At one point, Dr. Weber mentions they didn't have kids because Adele didn't want to raise a child essentially on her own. That says a lot, especially when she's incredibly close to her niece. It makes you think that Adele probably did want children, but gave up that dream to be with Richard, a man who was barely ever home and couldn't even stay faithful. Sure, she eventually does leave him. But if I'm remembering correctly, as soon as Richard begged her to come back, she was like, yeah, sure, why not? By then, she was probably so deep into that marriage, it didn't seem too strange for her to go back. Not that I don't think she'd have been better off walking away for good, but at that point, it's almost like the damage was done. But here's the thing, we only meet Adele later in life. Maybe she wasn't as strong when she was younger. Maybe Richard was a great husband before he turned into a walking disaster. Adele was a nurse, so she wasn't sitting at home twiddling her thumbs waiting for Richard to stroll through the door. She had her own full schedule and probably preferred a partner who was just as busy. Still, it's hard to buy that Adele would have just put up with all that nonsense for so long. She's a total powerhouse, and she deserved so much more than that. It was 1983 though, so divorce was still pretty taboo, and if a man cheated, people had this strange tendency to blame the woman. And of course, there's that little thing called love. I think that's what it boiled down to. She loved him. She stayed with him even though everyone around her said she'd be better off without him. In the end, I think she just forgot to leave. She looked the other way for all those years, pretending she didn't know what was going on because, deep down, she loved him. Teddy and Christina should have ended up together. Hot take? Maybe. But hear me out, I'm on season 6, and we're smack in the middle of the Teddy-Owen-Christina love triangle. Honestly, they should have just cut Owen out of the picture entirely and had Christina and Teddy get together. It would have been so much better. Christina didn't need to hook up with every one of her teachers. What made Teddy and Dr. Thomas stand out is that they actually wanted to help Christina be a better surgeon. They weren't constantly punishing her just because their own feelings got in the way. That's a rare gem. Now Owen, we all know he's a walking disaster when it comes to relationships. But honestly, Teddy might actually be worse. The only time she wasn't a total wreck in a relationship was with Henry, and that lasted like 5 minutes. And let's talk about the writers for a second. Absolute cowards for not making Christina canonically bi. I could totally see her with Teddy, and the drama that could have come from a true love triangle would have been next level. Both of them having feelings for each other and Owen. Chaos, and I would have been here for every second of it. All right. So here's my genius theory on how Grey's Anatomy will finally come to its bittersweet conclusion. I'm currently rewatching the show, and in one of the earlier episodes, Derek casually drops the bomb that he's worried Meredith might have the Alzheimer's gene, just because she occasionally forgets things. You know, small stuff, like maybe the name of the hospital or the fact that she's married to Derek Shepherd, world-famous neurosurgeon. But wait, that got me thinking. What if they wrap up the show when Meredith is in her 50s and surprise, surprise, she's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's? And the whole finale is just her sitting in a rocking chair, reminiscing about everything that's happened over the last 30-plus years at Grey Sloan, flashbacks galore. Maybe it's too on the nose, too predictable, or maybe I'm just a glutton for emotional misery. But hey, it's Grey's, so nothing is ever simple, right? And here's the big one, Richard Webber. I need him to finally torch that hospital and watch it burn to the ground, just so he can retire in peace. The man deserves it. I've heard this theory before, and yeah, I'm all in on it. Let the man go out in a blaze of glory, literally. He's been there, done that, and I'm pretty sure he's just waiting for the perfect moment to watch it all go up in smoke. Now, about that whole voiceover thing. There's this theory that Meredith's voiceovers aren't just her reflecting on life. Oh no, apparently they're excerpts from her journal entries, or maybe it's her kids or grandkids reading them aloud. The whole show is basically Meredith's life told through her personal diary. Classic. Also, don't forget, Meredith has 2 of the major Alzheimer's markers. She's basically on a ticking clock, people. It's coming, whether we like it or not. Honestly, the showrunner has set up this Alzheimer's storyline so perfectly. I'd be majorly disappointed if they don't end it this way. It would be like ending Game of Thrones with an actual satisfying conclusion. Oh wait, but back to Grey's. Meredith is about 47 or 48 now, right? right around the age her mother was when she started showing symptoms of Alzheimer's. Coincidence? Yeah, probably not. And sure, Ellen Pompeo is almost 58 or 60, but Meredith? Definitely still in her 40s, because time clearly doesn't apply to these characters. I mean, come on, they're like the literal embodiment of forever young, except for when they're not. Oh, Lexi, it's like the showrunners were just itching to bench her. Seriously, a year or so before she passed away on the show, it felt like they couldn't be bothered to give her anything to do. It was like they gave up on her entirely and reduced her to background extra status. Once she and Sloane split, it was as if they just didn't know what to do with her. Sure, she was pregnant, hard to ignore that, but it's not like they couldn't still give her something meaningful. Then, when she dies, it's like they actively tried to forget she existed. I mean, they barely mentioned her, like they were afraid to utter her name. You could count the times they talked about her on one hand. But Mark? Oh, Mark was practically canonized. Don't get me wrong, I love Mark too, but come on, what about Lexi? From what I understand, the actress, Chyler Lee, had a lot going on personally. She was struggling in her marriage, dealing with her mental health, diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and her life was a bit of a mess. Allegedly, things got complicated with Jesse Williams as well, which didn't help her already strained situation. So she actually asked to be written off the show. I mean, can you blame her? She didn't want to be in the position where fans were bugging her to come back, kind of like what happened with Sandra Oh. So it's possible the writers were trying to respect her wishes by fading her out and letting audiences forget about her. But man, it's sad that Mer never even gave a tiny shout out to Lexi. Just a small miss you, little sis, would have been enough. By season 8, Lexi was getting the full George in season 5 treatment. It's like the writers have a habit of ruining characters before they leave, turning them into these shell versions of themselves. Lexi was written as this lovesick, meek character who couldn't form a sentence around Mark, which was totally off from her character before. Lexi was strong, independent, and wasn't afraid to speak her mind. Someone in that writer's room clearly had it out for her. Maybe they just didn't like her, or maybe they were just writing on the idea that she was a casualty of behind-the-scenes drama. Either way, it was a huge disservice to a character who deserved so much more. What happened to Leah Murphy anyway? Did I miss something, or was I just not paying attention when she magically disappeared? First, Weber tells her she might not be cut out for the job, so she packs her bags and heads to a lab or something. Fine. Then, out of nowhere, they pulled her back for absolutely no reason, and she's there, barely relevant for a couple of episodes, and then, poof, she vanishes into thin air. Did she leave again? Or was her departure just as random and unceremonious as every other character on Grey's? Seriously, I'm lost. Honestly, this whole thing might be one of the most pointless moves the show has pulled. They bring Leah back for a handful of episodes and then just disappear her. Classic Grey's. My theory? She was probably just there to help with the Eliza Minnick storyline. Once that was over, they didn't need her anymore. So goodbye, Leah. I feel for the actress, though. I bet they didn't even tell her she'd only be sticking around for a couple of episodes. I mean, it doesn't seem like they were all that transparent. It's just a mess. Can't wait for the Grey's tell-all books after the show wraps up. That's going to be a goldmine of behind-the-scenes drama. Unpopular opinion time. I actually like the new interns. I'm only on season 20, episode 5 or 6, so please, no spoilers, okay? But seriously, I'm a fan of Yasuda, Kwan, Millen, Griffith, and Adams. I'm probably butchering those names, sorry in advance. Of course, they can't hold a candle to the magic of the original 5, but they're not hard to love. I have zero complaints about the show in general. It's my happy place. I honestly don't know what I'm going to watch after this. Also, quick side note, I use my son's Netflix, and I think he forgot to pay the bill, so I might be done with the whole thing anyway. But seriously, what do you all think about the new interns? I've read through here and seen some dislike, but I'm asking you, the real opinions. Okay, it turns out this isn't as unpopular as I thought. It's actually pretty divisive, depending on who you ask. Yasuda seems to be the golden child. Almost everyone loves her, and for good reason. Her character development is impressive for how quickly it happens. I don't think I've seen a single complaint about her. Kwon and Millen are generally likable too, but they're a little harder to connect with since they're both pretty laid back. They're not exactly bursting with personality so far. Now, the real drama is with Simone and Adams, who, shockingly, are the two with the most backstory and the biggest hype from the writers. Most of their scenes are just them moaning about each other, and let's be honest, without that weird romance subplot, neither of them seems to be doing much on their own. That might be changing for Adams, though, so we'll see. But all in all, they're not a bad group. Definitely no complaints from me. I'm totally on board with Yasuda. Adams gives off a young Patrick Dempsey vibe, awkward but kinda cute. Kwon, he's intriguing. I can't wait to see where his character arc goes. Griffith seems like she's meant to be the group's protagonist, but for me, her character doesn't quite measure up to the others. And Millen, I'm still reserving judgment. Haven't seen enough to form a solid opinion yet. Teddy and Owen, just no. I'm so over their whole dynamic. Look, I get it. Owen's made his share of mistakes. But Teddy? She's been a straight-up nightmare about everything for way too long. This whole open marriage idea was dumb from the start, and now she's throwing a tantrum because Owen did something she did exactly the same. Ridiculous. It's obvious she was already feeling something for what's-her-name before they even agreed to this open relationship thing. The first chance she got, she jumped on it. But sure, let's all point fingers at Owen for trying it out too. In her eyes, he can do no right. Honestly, I've hated these two together from the very beginning. From the moment Teddy showed up, I knew this wasn't gonna work. I was actually relieved when she left the first time. I hated the way she treated Christina, didn't buy into the whole baby storyline, and don't even get me started on her being chief. Just boo Teddy all the way. Now, it's not that I hate her, or even hate Owen for that matter. It's just that their relationship doesn't make sense anymore. It feels like one of those she fell first, he fell harder situations, but now they're just stuck in this weird, forced relationship because they've waited too long to give up on it. Honestly, they need to admit they'd be better off as friends. Every little thing they do as a couple just triggers the other one in the most bizarre ways. They could totally be platonic soulmates, like Meredith and Christina. If Weber had still been chief, would we be pointing the finger at him like we do with Owen for the crash? Owen Hunt seems to catch a lot of flack, and yeah, he deserves some of it. He's a terrible husband, but hey, he's a decent chief and a pretty solid mentor. But when it comes to the plane crash, it's almost like people forget the actual details and just use him as a punching bag. Now, imagine if Richard had been the one running the hospital. Would the crash still have happened? I mean, we all know the budget cuts were still in play. Richard himself fired a ton of staff when they merged hospitals, remember? So he probably would have done the exact same thing, signed with some cheap travel company. And would he have done a better job of checking the safety of the company? Maybe, maybe not. With his new romance with Catherine and dealing with Adele's Alzheimer's, he wasn't exactly sitting around with time to micromanage every little detail, right? So would having a different chief have really changed anything about that flight to Boise? Look, there was definitely negligence, and yes, we can blame the hospital and Owen as chief. But it wasn't like he personally messed up. If Richard or Derek had been in charge at the time, would they have handled it differently? Probably not. Same financial struggles, same pressure to cut costs, and they'd likely make the same decision, cheaper charter flight. The hospital was drowning in debt after all. The thing is, people love to blame Owen for the crash, but if it had been Richard or Derek, oh, they wouldn't get the same treatment. People would find a way to excuse them, like they always do. Owen gets trashed for everything, but when Derek was chief, no one's out here accusing him of being responsible for this loophole. But sure, let's pretend Owen should have been the one to research the safety record of an airline. Sure, because the chief of surgery is totally expected to be an expert on aviation. Honestly, though, I don't think either Richard or Derek would have made a different call. The aviation industry is so heavily regulated that you just expect the company to be safe. But for whatever reason, Owen gets all the hate. People love Weber, and they can't ever seem to blame him. It's baffling how some characters get a free pass while others are scapegoated. What made you stay? First-time watcher here, just started season 12, and I have to ask, did anyone actually stop watching at this point? Like, after all the major exits back-to-back? Christina and Derek, really? I adored Sandra Oh, and her leaving was a gut punch. But then you follow that up with Derek, who, let's face it, was practically married to Meredith's storyline. I imagine the fandom was devastated back then. Just curious, anyone here seriously considered throwing in the towel after that? No spoilers past S11, by the way, just started S12. I'm way too invested to stop now. Yeah, I figured that username was on point. Honestly, I almost called it quits after season 3, when Burke and Addison left. Not that I was a Burke fan, I definitely wasn't, but he was a big part of the show, and his departure left a noticeable hole. I also wanted to stop after the plane crash, but then I stuck around because Calzona. After those big exits, the show feels a bit different, but it's still worth watching. I think a lot of it comes down to not wanting to leave the Grey's universe unfinished, even if it's not quite the same as the earlier seasons. I've been watching daily for 10 years. Yeah, seriously. Sometimes I try to watch all the seasons, but the moment Christina leaves, I'm grieving and end up starting from the beginning just to get her back. And honestly, I've never gotten bored. Grey's has been my lifeline through some seriously rough stuff. Divorce, custody battles, losing my dad, depression, addiction, raising 3 teenagers solo, job losses, you name it. Now I'm in a much better place mentally, but Grey's was there for me when I had nothing else. It gave me a constant source of friends when I felt completely alone. I'll always love the show for that.